Welcome to the New School of Marketing podcast, the place for smart, simple strategies that will amplify your business results. Sharing practical tips, insider knowledge, and actionable advice because marketing is something that every business owner can do. Now, let's get started. Introducing your host, Bianca McKenzie, mum, lover of snow sports, camping, horse riding, and in-demand launch strategist and Facebook advertising knowledge bank.
Welcome to the New School of Marketing podcast. I'm Bianca McKenzie, and today I'm talking about what the Enneagram is and how it can support you in your business with Samantha Baldock. Sam is an Enneagram coach for coaches and service-based business owners. She is a qualified life coach, accredited Enneagram practitioner for individuals, and has been trained in Enneagram for teams. Her mission is to support women to get to know their Enneagram profile so they can unlock a greater understanding of themselves and their business so that they can embrace their strengths and show up as their most authentic self and attract clients with ease. Welcome to the show, Sam. Super excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. I am definitely super honored to be on your podcast, The New School of Marketing. Thank you so much for having me.
Exciting. All right, well, let's dive in. What is the Enneagram? And I might not even be pronouncing it properly. So, correct me if I'm wrong or where I'm wrong. Yeah, let's dive in. What is it?
No, you're saying it absolutely correctly. It's called the Enneagram. So Enne standing for 9 and gram standing for diagram. So it's a pretty much showing a 9-point diagram. So the Enneagram is a map of self-awareness, and it can really support you to understand at your core why you do, why you act, and why you feel the way you do in relation to yourself, others, and sort of like the world. It's based on like I mentioned, the 9 core styles that look at motivations, fears, and defenses that contribute to your personality.
Super interesting. And I know that there's a number of different sort of personality assessments and types and things. And I've done a few, but I've never come across the Enneagram until I met you. So, yeah, how is it different to other personality assessments?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And I know we've all been down, if you've been into personal development, you've probably been down the rabbit hole of finding out some of these different personality assessments. And the Enneagram isn't a hugely popular one in Australia. It's definitely bigger in different parts of the world, but it's quite different to other personality assessments. Instead of looking at your behaviors as such, it's really looking at what your core motivations are. So you can have 9 people with the same behavior, but they might be motivated by different things. And so it's really hard. It's not like, oh, you can see Joe Boy walking down the street, you're like, oh, he's a whatever Enneagram type, or he's a 3, or he's a 6. It's really hard to pinpoint because you're really actually not looking at the surface level. We're starting to look at underneath that. So what are those motivations and defenses and core types, which sometimes we're really good at masking and hiding. So that's kind of what makes it really different to some of our other personality assessments that you might have done in the past.
Yeah, so it's in a way very different in terms of that it looks at motivation. Because, I'm kind of only familiar with DISC and what's the other one where you're like ENF something or whatever.
Yeah.
So talking about motivation behind things, how can it support you in your business? Because I can imagine, like, it's great that you're like personality X, Y, and Z, and like you're introverted, extroverted, all that kind of stuff. From the other personality assessments, it's super interesting to look at motivation, because I can imagine that is so important for a business. Like, it is all about motivation, isn't it? So how does it support someone in business?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really what makes it so different to the other, like you say, personality tests, because you kind of find out what type you are in something else. And you're like, yeah, that's cool to know. But what makes the Enneagram different is, instead of putting you in a box and saying, okay, you're a type 3, for example, it really shows you, okay, so you might relate or resonate most with type 3, but you actually parts of all the different types. But when we look at what type you are, it's really based on that core motivation, and how that can be really important in business is really, obviously, business, as you know, is like the biggest personal development work you will ever do in your life.
Yeah.
And so understanding what you're motivated by actually helps you understand what are the ways you're holding yourself back, and where are the areas that you need extra support in. And if you're motivated by, say, you're a 3 and you're motivated by success, what does that look like on the other side of that? So it's kind of looking at, I always talk about like both the two sides of a sword, or like when things are in service to you and when they're in disservice, like all of your strengths. And so the Enneagram kind of can give you some language and some actual growth strategies, rather than just saying, okay, cool, you're a type 3, that's all well and good. But the Enneagram can start to give you some growth strategies to going, okay, you're a type 3 or a type 6 or a type 7, based on knowing that these are your motivations. Okay, what are growth strategies that are going to suit you best, not just what's going to suit, the majority of people. It's actually going, okay, if you're motivated by success, or you're motivated by being liked or getting things right, or being capable, what does that mean for you on your daily basis? Like, that might mean, as a 5, for example, you're trying to be really capable in your business, but it might be holding you back because you actually don't need to be capable at everything you're doing. And so you might be able to outsource to someone that has different strengths to you. And knowing what your strengths are by knowing your type, you can also go, okay, well, where are my limitations? What would I actually need support in my business? So you're not going out there and hiring the same person, or same a person with the same strengths as you. You can actually really get the language around, okay, where do I need the support in my business?
Yeah, I can totally stand behind that and see how that would work. And so knowing your Enneagram type, I guess it can really help when you're hiring someone in terms of like, where do I need the support? But then also knowing the types of the person that you're going to hire. So how can knowing everything about this Enneagram thing really help you with hiring, both from your own perspective? But I can imagine also testing the other, it's an assessment, right? It's not a test, it's an assessment, but assessing because there's, in a way, it can be conflicting if you're the same. Is it? I don't know. Like, explain it to me. How is it? How does it relate to hiring? And like, what sort of diversity would be a good thing to aim for?
Absolutely, that's a good question. And I know that when I was doing my training, they were saying that there was a group of and they're like, oh, I just want everyone to be like me. There was this leader, and he was a type 1. He's like, yeah, no, I want everyone to have the same strength as me. They'll have the same understanding as me, because we all have the same, each type has the same like worldview as a point. So it's like, yeah, these people are going to be great because they're all going to be like me. And then you get into a room, but you've all got the same strengths, which is great, but then you've also all got the same limitations.
Yeah.
And so it's great to actually have a really well-rounded business where you've got people with different strengths. And that can also come with its challenges as well. But with the Enneagram, if you look at Google, if you haven't seen an Enneagram diagram before, but there's a lot of lines going across it. And you're like, what do all the lines mean?
Yeah.
But if you look at your number and look at the number on the other end of a line, you're probably very different to that number, because they're sort of very polar opposites to sort of, it might be the core motivations or characteristics of that type can be very different to your own. So for an example, I had a client, she was a 4, and she was like, I just so many strengths, being creative, having this vision, really feeling deeply into her vision of her business. But she's like, I've got no organizational skills whatsoever. And I'm like, great. Okay. So if you want to hire, 4s go to 1. So their line goes to 1. And so 1s are really organized. They're really structured people. I see them being VAs. I see them being business like OBMs. They're very structured and organized people. So it's like, well, if you're wanting to add that into your business, then you don't want to be like going out there and like, oh, okay, I've got to hire an Enneagram 1. But you can also go and take the Enneagram 1 characteristics of being organized and structured and say, these are the people I want in my business to help support me to grow further than what I can do by myself. And on the flip side of that, knowing that that person might trigger you a lot, going, oh my gosh, they're super organized and I'm really not organized. So just knowing, like, you might want to be hiring a person that's super organized and you're not super organized. So you need to like balance that out. But it might be that, okay, we don't actually need 3 4s in our business where we're all just creative and we're flowy and, we actually need some structure, or we might need some directness and we might need some real 8 energy in our business. So it's going, okay, what are the characteristics I need in my business to grow? And how can I utilize the Enneagram to support that? Going, okay, if I'm utilizing my lines, for example, if I'm a 1 and I'm hiring a 7, we might have triggers because we're very polar, like we've got a lot of polarity in our characteristics, but that could be really great for the business as well.
Yeah. I can imagine. Like I guess you would have different communication styles and things like that as well. But I guess you need to remember what you're hiring for. And like I can only imagine the disaster of all of the same type of people in a business. I like you wouldn't get anything done if you all had like, visionaries, and you need the visionaries, but you also need the doers and the structured and the organized people. So you mentioned there's 9. Can you list sort of what they are? Like, I don't like, you don't need to spend hours because I'm sure there's heaps of information about it as well. But I'm a little bit curious about what each of them sort of are.
Okay, yeah. No, well, I can give you like a couple of sentences on each, as if that makes it a little bit easier. But I'll just run through the 9 core types, and you might even be triggered by some of the names. And if you are, definitely go and look into them more. Because I want to remind people that the names are neutral. Some people get really triggered by the names going, oh, I'm this, or oh, that's definitely not me. But just remember that the words are just neutral. They're just descriptive words. So the 9 core types are, so type 1s are called our strict perfectionists. Sometimes you'll see it as called the reformer. Our type 2s, the considerate helper. 3, we've got competitive achiever. 4, intense creative. 5, quite specialist. 6, loyal skeptic. 7, enthusiastic visionary. 8 is active controller. And 9 is the peacemaker. So it's great to know that you might have heard that and gone, oh, I feel like maybe I could this one or this one. And it's great to listen to the names, but I'll give you a couple of sentences on each, and that might help give you a little bit more understanding on each type. And knowing that you actually will have, majority of the time, you'll have all of these in part of you at some point, like the characteristics. So you're not just one type. And so that's really good to be aware of. But then it can also get a little bit confusing for people because they're like, oh, I can't pick my type. But I'm sure we'll discuss that a little bit down the track. But so we've got type 1. So they're our strict perfectionists. So they are, like I mentioned, desire that order, structure, control. They have a really strong sense of like right and wrong, but believing things aren't worth doing if they're not done correctly. So they want to fix what's wrong with the world. Like they're our fixers, our reformers. We've got type 2. So they're called our considerate helper. So these types, this is my type, I should probably mention. This is a generous, giving, supportive, and on the flip side, their self-worth is really based on their ability to be supportive and be of service to people, of those that are close to them. They want to be helpful and they actually go out of their way to anticipate the needs of others. Type 3 is our competitive achiever. So they're ambitious, accomplished, and they just enjoy looking good. They're very action-orientated people and very ambitious. So, and they're the doers. They get stuff done and they achieve their goals. So they are always striving for success, and they are pretty much being productive all of the time. Like if you're telling a 3 to slow down, don't have to do all the things, they're like, why not? Because I want to do all of the things. Our type 4 is our intense creative. So these are our unique and individual creative people. They are deeply connected to their emotions and they really strive to live a meaningful and authentic life. They're the people that want to find the meaning in everything. They're not just doing things for the sake of it. So our type 5s are our quiet specialists. So They are our thinkers. So they think, they analyze, and they solve. Their objective is like understanding the world. They want to consume knowledge of things they're really interested in, really in depth. So if they're interested in a topic, pretty much ask them any question on it because they will have the answer. And on the flip side of that, they're really independent. They actually don't like relying on other people because they think that they can learn enough about a certain topic to get by themselves. Type 6 is our loyal skeptic. So these Enneagram types they're cautious and they're really into planning. They're into planning. So they're always like on the, how do you say it? Like they're always aware of the risks and the threats of like what could go wrong. They're our, if you've got like a plan A, they've got a plan B, C, and D. Like they're very well versed in what could happen and what they will need to do if something goes wrong. They're continually just working towards creating that really safety and stability in their life. They're always prepared. Be prepared, type 6s. We've got our enthusiastic visionaries. So our type 7. So these are our positive outlook Enneagram types. They are the fun type. If you're thinking of fun, you're thinking of a type 7. They like literally actively seek enjoyment, and they can be a bit flimsy. They can be like, oh, this isn't fun anymore. What's the next fun thing I can do?
Yeah.
They're pretty future focused because they're always just like, where's the joy in this? So I think if you're not a 7, you need to know a 7 because they can really bring the fun to things. And they
Spice up your life.
Absolutely. They don't enjoy being bored. And really they actually avoid being in pain. They just avoid it by doing all the fun things. Type 8 is our active controller. So these people are our powerful, direct Enneagram type. They firmly take charge of situations and they don't hold back. They tell you their opinion and they are results focused. They are also very similar to the 3s in the fact that they are doers. They are action takers, decision makers, and they are known for just getting in and getting the job done.
Yeah.
So you'll probably know an 8 in your life. You'll probably know all of these Enneagram types in your life. But and then we have our type 9. So these are the peacemakers. And it's interesting, the 9 sits at the top of the Enneagram diagram because they see themselves in all of the types, probably more so than any other type. They, and in the same time, they really are like conflict avoiders. They just value being understanding and accommodating, and they almost take on other people's opinions as their own because they just want harmony. They just want everyone to be happy and peaceful. And so they're just happy to go with the flow. So that's pretty much our 9 types.
Thanks for explaining that. And as I'm sitting here, I can't put myself in any of it. Well, like there's just mixes, I guess. And that's what I'm at the moment finding out through talking to you, that it seems to be very different from the other assessment types because I think it is all a little bit of a mix in terms of, yes, there's probably a stronger Enneagram type that you have. But like when I was talking to you, I was like, oh, where do I see my husband? And there's like two types that he's got a bit of both kind of thing. And I probably fit in different spaces as well. So how can people find out about their Enneagram type? Because listening to you, I'm like, oh yeah, that maybe that and maybe that, and I'm not sure.
And this is a good one because honestly, some people hear the Enneagram, they're like, I'm this type. I'm absolutely this type. And my first experience of the Enneagram was to do the questionnaire that I actually get my clients to do because, like I said before, with the whole motivation, it can kind of be hard to tell because what I explained to you through those types is a lot of characteristics. So there are a lot of outward behaviors that you're looking at to try and determine your type, which is where we can kind of get like, oh, are we this one? Are we that one? Which one? I'm not sure. And honestly, like I'm an Enneagram 2, but I am everything I see with Enneagram 9, I'm like, that's me. that's me. But I know at my core, being an Enneagram 2, my core fears and motivations, I know that that's more me than the 9. So even though I relate to pretty much 99% of the 9, I know that I'm more than 2 because of the motivation. And that's why you can kind of see yourself in so many different ones. So look, I suppose the first way you can kind of look at it is, like I mentioned, look at the fear and motivation of all 9 types and really lean into that. Absolutely, there's heaps of free tests online. They focus a little bit more on behavior, so they do have a little bit of a downfall in that sense. But sometimes they can be a great place to start. I'm not against them, because sometimes they can be a great place to start because they might give you your top like 2 or 3 to really sit with and go, which one fits with me? And for some of my clients, I'm like, just sit with, okay, if you think that maybe you're a 7, for example, just sit with thinking that you resonate most with the 7 for a little while and just see how it fits with you. This isn't an exact science as per se, because it's so based on your motivations. It can kind of sometimes take a little bit longer for some people to really determine that type. Obviously there's heaps of Enneagram coaches. I'm an Enneagram coach, so I obviously work with my clients to help support them to learn their Enneagram type through. I do a bit of a specialized questionnaire with the company that I train through, which has a bit of a 95% accuracy, so it gives me a lot more detail, more than just your type. There's a lot more to the Enneagram than just the 9 types. There's subtypes, there's your wing influences and lines and all the different things. So we take all that into consideration, which gives us a little bit better of an understanding of what type you might be. And that's why I use that one, I think, because it really gives me, it kind of quickens the process a little bit, because, sometimes we, even when we're doing any personality assessment, sometimes we can answer questions based more on like who the person we want to be.
Yes. Well, that's what I was going to ask. Does it ever change?
Oh, this is such a good question. I've had people go, oh, I was a 2, but I'm now a 3, and I'm like, oh, that's really good. I think you were always a 3. You just thought you were a 2, because our Enneagram type, now a lot of the parts of the Enneagram can change, like I mentioned with subtypes and things, but your actual core motivation, it is thought that you actually had the same one through your entire lifetime, which is really developed as in childhood. Actually, it's coming to like, who did you think you needed to be when you were a child to survive and to get through childhood? And that's where your Enneagram type really starts, in childhood. And you actually stay that, you keep that same core type throughout your entire life. It can change, your levels of growth can change within that, but you actually keep the same type.
Fascinating. Honestly fascinating. I'm like sitting there going, I wonder what my daughter is.
Yes.
I can't really say much about my son yet. Like, he's 10 weeks. I'm sure it hasn't developed yet.
It might not have come out just yet, but yeah, it's really interesting with Enneagram, with parenting and knowing your child's type. It's a little bit less accurate, but kids are really good at, you can kind of see their Enneagram come out, because they always show the strengths really well. So it's really interesting to know what you are as a parent and how you parent as your Enneagram type as well. So
fascinating. Okay, so back to business. Once you know your type, how do you make sure that you actually incorporate that knowledge into your business and not just go back to what you used to do or what you learned to do, or like whatever, all the gurus tell you to do? Because you need to use this kind of knowledge to your advantage, I would say, and everyone's going to be doing business better and differently, I can imagine.
Yeah, this is such a great question, because I always think it's sometimes great, and I meet people and they're like, oh yeah, I'm an Enneagram 6. I'm like, cool, so what does that mean? And they're like, yeah, but I don't know what that means. I'm like, yeah. So firstly, the Enneagram isn't about going, okay, you found out your type, you've got to now go change your life. Here is your list of things you need to do to change. But it's rather about giving that self-awareness, and actually bringing the awareness to the table first, of like, okay, where are my patterns coming up for me? And actually just really noticing, like, through the day, your daily habits, the habits you have in your business, like, what's holding you back? what could be that? Like, how do you get that and break that down to really understanding where your core motivations are playing a part in the decisions that you're making? And I come back to this question, and I say this to my clients all the time, is like, where is what you're doing serving or disserving you?
Yeah, that's a
Because
really good question, because I can imagine that you're just pushing, that not so nice word uphill. Honestly, because if you're, I don't know, I can imagine working with coaches and they'll be like, oh, do this and do that. But if that goes against your motivation, or that goes against your, in a way, Enneagram type, it would feel like a hard slog. And this is why I struggle with certain business advice, because I see certain things and I'm like, I'm not doing that. Ooh, like I couldn't think of anything worse. And that probably comes from, I guess, motivation as well. What's your thought on that?
yeah, absolutely. And I think knowing your type, it really gets you to ask the right questions for you. And for me as a coach, it gets me to ask the right questions based to, like, for my client based on their Enneagram type. I ask different questions to my clients based on their Enneagram type. Like for a 7, I'm going to be like, what feels fun to you? Where can you chase the fun? Because that's what you're motivated by. So
Yeah.
don't be like, oh, that really boring task, it's really important. You really should sit there and do that. Instead, we could be like, okay, like how can we outsource this? If you really don't find this fun, you're not going to be doing it properly, right?
No.
For a 7. If you might be, for keep using the 7, but if 7s can kind of be a bit flimsy, like, okay, where do you need accountability? Like, if you really want to achieve this, where do you need accountability? But I wouldn't be asking the same of, say, a 3 client that might be taking action and doing all the things, but it's like, okay, like what's the important things that you need to be doing here? Whereas when I'm talking to, say, a 6 is going to want to plan everything and actually really like know what they're doing before they're doing it. They're going to want to know that there's like worst case scenarios. It's like, okay, how can we work through the worst case scenarios for them so they can keep moving forward? Whereas a 7's not worried about worst case scenarios. It's not worrying them. So you need to ask the questions and really hone in on that motivation, like you say, that motivates you. It's like, okay, but that's going to be different for the 9 different types of people. So how can you be asking the right questions to yourself based on what your Enneagram type is, so that you can help yourself, coach yourself, and move yourself through that? Because like you say, you see these business advisors going, okay, this is the strategy, this is what you need to be doing, and you're like, that doesn't feel good for me.
No.
And
Yeah, completely. And I'm just sitting here going, God, everyone who works with people should kind of know about this and should almost get someone to do some form of personality assessment before they work with them. I'm even now sitting here going, maybe I need to get my students, like my group program students, to do that, so that I know how to work better with them and get them motivated and help them grow their business. Oh, there's so many options for this, I can imagine.
oh, absolutely. And just even knowing, like, I know that there's the 9 types, but there's also the thinking, feeling, and acting. And so we're actually like, depending on the person, and it can be not completely dependent on the Enneagram type, but depending on what head center, if you're in the head or heart or head, heart, or gut center, the action center, that could be, really good to know for a person, because it's like, me, I'm in the feeling center. I'm a 2. The 2, 3, and 4, we're in the feeling center. 2s can get really stuck in worrying about how the relationships are going to work. We can really procrastinate because we're worried about the relationships and things. So it's like, okay, if there's someone's procrastinating, like, why are they procrastinating? Like, how can I support my clients? But if I've got action takers, they're going to do the action. So I don't need to worry about them in taking action, but I might need to help them slow down and think about things before they're taking the action, because maybe they're not taking the right action right now, but they're taking a lot of action. So it's like, there's the three different types of people. It's like, well, if you're high in thinking, you might be thinking things through, you might be planning everything, but you're not taking the action. Whereas like the action people might not be seeing enough time in like, oh, how is this going to impact your relationships right now? Like, how is this impacting you and your business? Because most people will, well, I personally believe that business is really relationships.
Yes.
So if you can relate and you can really see and have your clients or the people you work with really feel like they are seen and heard, they're going to feel valued every day of the week.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I completely agree. I can just see so many possibilities for the Enneagram. There's just world of possibilities. And like, I'm not even going to go into personal relationships because I'm like sitting there going, oh God, that's my husband and that's me. This is like, there's a little bit of a clash. So yeah, it is all relationships, completely all relationships. And I think it's really good that you said it. Self-analyze and be more aware of it when you are doing things and when you are making decisions. I think that will really help people. And I kind of have to do that with most personality assessments, although sometimes they're not really helpful. Like, does it really matter whether I'm an introvert or an extrovert? I get like, it matters, but at the same time, there's ways around things for everything. So I'm super interested how there's like more layers of this Enneagram as well. So I'm definitely going to put your links in the show notes because I know that people are going to be really interested in diving deeper in this. It's the first personality assessment that I've learned about that is still a little bit mysterious to me, but at the same time, it really kind of gets me curious about like what's the next layer of certain types. Like I want to know more, if that makes sense. The other ones seem to just be a little bit sort of either too common. It's like, all right, you're this. I'm like, well, okay, what do I do with it? And I feel like this one can really help people dive deeper and know more. And for business, motivation is so important because if you're not motivated, you're not going to do anything, right? So knowing what your motivation is, I can't think of anything more important to know. So yeah,
absolutely. And like if you're in business, you're selling to someone. Like, who are you selling to? What is their like, not exactly what are their Enneagram types, but like, what are they motivated by?
Yeah.
Like, it's important to know all of this. Like, you need to know firstly what you are, so you can know what you're bringing to the table, your strengths, your biases, like what are you bringing to the table, how you communicate, how you lead your business. But then on the flip side, you can also look at like, who am I selling to? How do they want to be sold to?
Yeah. Oh, so much more to dive into. Oh, we could talk about this for ages.
Yes.
But we're going to wrap up. All right, 2 more questions. What are you curious about right now?
Oh, this is a great question. I'm really curious to see how social media changes in the future and how we utilize it for business. I think it's been such a huge benefit for everyone, I believe, that's got a small business, and just how that will change in the future. I think everything's always adapting and changing. So I'm curious to see how that will play out.
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. And now that I know more about the Enneagram, it's like relationships online. That's like, again, a different level. Okay, if you had an extra $1,000 in your marketing budget, what would you spend it on?
Oh, this is a good question. I would probably spend it on getting a podcast myself up and running, because I think I can talk for hours about the Enneagram, and I think that I would love to get into, probably spend money on getting a podcast set up.
Yes, do it. Fun. Cool. Well, if when you do that, tell me, and I'll share that as well. And I know that you've got something coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, I'm so excited. I am running a 3-day online online challenge training, what you call it, these things. A free 3-day online training for small business owners, coaches, consultants, anyone to learn sort of about the Enneagram and how you can understand it, embody it, and how it can help you amplify your business. And that is happening on the 30th of May. So if you're interested, come join us. If you know nothing about the Enneagram other than what we've talked about today, you are in the right spot. Come join us. And even if you know what your type is and subtype and all the rest of it, come join us anyway, because it will be, a fantastic 3-day that's jam-packed full of information and value for you to really learn how the Enneagram can help you, support you to grow your business, faster and more efficiently.
Yay. Definitely going to share that. Cool. Well, that is the end of this week's show. If you have questions about the Enneagram and how it can help in your business, head to samanthajanecoaching.com and I'll pop the links in the show notes as well. A really big thanks to you, Sam, for talking through this. I still have so many more questions, so I'm definitely going to head over to your website. And I really probably should join your challenge so that I can learn more as well. But yeah, thank you for joining me on the podcast. It was so much fun talking to you.
Thank you so much. I have absolutely loved talking about the Enneagram, and thank you to all your listeners that will listen to this as well. And if you have any questions, come DM me on Instagram. But again, thank you very much, Bianca. It's been such a joy.
Awesome. Thank you. Yes. And thanks everyone for listening. If you like the show, don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star rating and review on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, or wherever you heard the podcast. Your review will help others find the show and learn more about the amazing world of online marketing. And don't forget to check out the show notes for this episode at newschoolofmarketing.com, where you can learn more about Sam, check out useful links, download free resources, and leave a comment about the show.